So, hello everyone, and welcome to this session on the embryology of the cardiovascular system. We are just trying to cover as much as possible regarding the embryology of CVS. Heart is the first organ almost to start functioning and starts beating on the 21st day of the intrauterine life. Starts beating on the 21st day of the intrauterine life. Initially, there are these two heart tubes at the cranial end of the embryo, and these two heart tubes then, in the next step, they start uniting. Okay, and finally, they get united in such a way that some swellings appear, and the lower part still is ununited. Okay, now this lower part, lower these four swellings are bulbus cordis. Now this represents the arterial end. This represents the arterial end. Bulbus cordis, the common ventricular chamber, the common atrial, some called primitive ventricular chamber, the primitive ventricular chamber, common primitive atrial chamber, and sinus venosus, which represents the venous end of the heart, which represents the venous end of the heart. Now let us see what develops. We just saw that there are these four swellings: the bulbus cordis, the primitive ventricular chamber, the primitive atrial chamber, and then the sinus venosus. These four things are there, but they give rise to what? So now I am making a table here and writing the names of the four chambers. Each chamber of the heart has a smooth part and a rough part. Hmm? Has a rough part, and a smooth part. Okay. So now let us study the first chamber, that is the right atrium. The right atrium, the rough part will develop from the primitive atrial chamber. The primitive atrial chamber. Always remember, rough roads are the primitive roads are rough. So rough parts of the atria and ventricle, they develop from the primitive chamber. So the rough part, it develops from the primitive atrial chamber. And what about the smooth part? What about the smooth part? The smooth part of the right atrium develops from sinus venosus. Develops from sinus venosus. Develops from sinus venosus. Now when it comes to the left atrium, the rough part will develop from primitive atrial chamber. That is this primitive atrial chamber. Primitive atrial chamber. And what about the smooth part? What about the smooth part of the left atrium? It develops from absorbed pulmonary veins. Absorbed pulmonary veins. So right atrium and left atrium, rough parts develop from primitive atrial chambers. Smooth part of the right atrium develops from sinus venosus. Smooth part of the left atrium develops from absorbed pulmonary veins. Now right ventricle and left ventricle. Their rough parts develop from primitive ventricular chamber. Primitive ventricular chamber. Hmm? So basically, rough parts develop from primitive, and the smooth part develop from bulbous cordis. That means bulbous cordis will give rise to the smooth parts, and primitive ventricular chamber will give rise to the rough parts. Okay, so smooth part of right ventricle will develop from bulbous cordis. Smooth part of left ventricle will also develop from bulbous cordis. What is smooth and rough part? Normally, incoming parts of the ventricle are rough because the blood is being poured into it. So we want to slow down the pace of the blood. So there is a rough inflowing part in both the ventricles, and outflowing part is blood has to be pumped against gravity. Therefore, outflowing parts are smooth. So most of the places, rough parts are inflowing, and the smooth parts of the chambers, especially the ventricles, the smooth parts are the outflowing parts, where from where the blood flows out. We want it to be forced with as much speed and power as possible, and we don't want any obstruction. Therefore, the smooth parts are the outflowing parts. Now we have this common chambers. We have this common chambers. Just excuse me for a second. We have this common chamber. We have this arrangement, and this arrangement further changes in such a way that this part goes posterior. This part, the venous end goes posterior, and the arterial end, or rather the atrial end goes posterior, and the ventricular parts they come anterior. Okay. And after this arrangement is done, now let us talk about the development of the development of interatrial septum. Development of interatrial septum. Okay. When we talk about the development of the interatrial septum, we draw the common atrial chamber like this. The common atrial chamber like this, and these are AV cushions. The interesting part about the AV cushions is that AV cushions develop from neural crest cells. They develop from neural crest cells. And therefore, any neurological anomaly, you have to always check whether the baby is also having cardiac anomalies, because cardiac anomalies are very common in babies who have neurological anomalies, because the AV cushions of the heart, they develop from neural crest cells. Okay. So initially, the septum primum grows from the roof of the common atrial chamber. So this is septum primum. This is septum primum, and below this is a foramen now, which is called as foramen primum. This is the first step, foramen primum. Okay. Now beyond this, what happens is, here is the AV cushion. Here is the AV cushion. This septum primum then breaks off from the roof, and now, so this is step 1. This is step 2. The septum primum now breaks off from the roof and gets attached to the AV cushion. But in that process, there is a foramen formed here, which is now called as foramen secundum. Foramen secundum. Okay. Uh, please excuse me for my spelling sometimes, because I may be wrong in the spellings. Please do check in the uh, textbook. This is right, of course, but now step 3. So there are only, of course, the books don't talk about step 1, step 2, and step 3. Huh? And just for so that you remember, I am talking about this. So now the primum is already here. Okay. And now here is foramen secundum. This is septum primum. Okay. Okay. Septum primum. And it has come down and created a foramen secundum on the top. Now to close this foramen, foramen secundum comes the septum secundum. Septum secundum. Septum secundum. Now you see when I have drawn foramen septum primum, it is so thin, and septum secundum, which is so thick. So basically, because septum primum is thin, the blood flows like this, pushing the primum from right atrium to left atrium. Why we want this to happen? Because we don't want too much of blood to go to the lungs, because the lungs are not functional in the embryonic life, intrauterine life. The blood is coming and getting oxygenated from the placenta. We need to send some blood to the lung, just sufficient for the development of the lungs. Therefore, blood is getting diverted from here to right atrium to left atrium to left ventricle, and then from aorta to the all parts of the body. After birth, when the child takes its first breath, that time the left side pressure increases and the septum primum fuses. The septum primum fuses with the septum secundum. This arrangement is called as the foramen ovale, and if this doesn't close, it leads to patent foramen ovale. Patent foramen ovale, and then we'll talk about this in detail. Now, how does this gets reflected in adult life? So basically, in embryonic life, there was a thick foramen secundum. There was a thick foramen secundum, okay, and a very thin primum, very thin primum. So in our adult life also, those intraatrial septum appears like this, and so foramen primum is so thin that it appears like a fossa, and that is called as fossa ovalis. So in adult life, we call it fossa ovalis. So what is fossa ovalis? It is just a thin primum. And why we say thin? Because above that is thin secundum, which has come from the top. And this secundum is so thick compared to primum that its lower border is called as annulus fossa ovalis. Annulus fossa ovalis. Because we think that this is fossa ovalis and this is border of fossa ovalis, annulus fossa ovalis. But it is the lower, annulus fossa ovalis is the lower border of foramen secundum. So these are the stages of development of interatrial septum. This is AV cushion. Okay. This is the common atrial chamber. Septum primum comes from the top and then does not unite with AV cushion, creating a foramen primum. Then it unites with the AV cushion and creates a foramen secundum on the top. Then a septic septum secundum comes and thin primum is here. Blood pushes this thin primum and goes from right to the left side. In adult life, the foramen primum in the interatrial area appears like a fossa, so we call it fossa ovalis, and this lower border of secundum is called as annulus fossa ovalis. So that completes the development of the interatrial septum. Now we talk about the development of the interventricular septum. Interventricular septum, this is the common ventricular chamber. The common ventricular chamber, we all of us know that the lower upper part of which is the bulbar part. So from the bulbar area develops a septum which is called as bulbar septum. Develops a septum which is called as bulbar septum. And from the floor of the ventricular uh, common ventricular chamber develops another septum. So this is the common ventricular chamber. So this part is called as muscular part. This part is called as muscular part. And in between here are AV cushions. In between here are AV cushions. So this is the step one. That bulbar septum develops in the bulbus cordis coming from the top, and the muscular part develops from the floor. Muscular part develops from the floor, and in between is AV cushion. Now what happens is, this is the common ventricular chamber. This is the bulbar septum. This is the So this is the bulbar part of the interventricular septum. This is the muscular part, and here are the AV cushions. So these AV cushions they proliferate. These AV cushions they proliferate, and this this part is called as now the membranous part. This part. This part is called as the membranous part of the. So this is muscular part, this is bulbar part, and this AV cushions they proliferate and they form the membranous part of the interventricular septum. So interventricular septum has three parts: a muscular part coming from the floor of the common ventricular chamber, b bulbar part coming from the bulbus cordis coming from the top, and AV cushions they proliferate to form the membranous part. So one thing we have to realize that if this AV cushions they don't proliferate and close this gap, it can lead to VSD, ventricular septal defect. Ventricular septal defect. So that is about the division of the right and the left ventricle. Again, this is the common ventricular chamber. Muscular part comes from the floor, bulbar parts from the top, and AV cushions are in between. These AV cushions proliferate and close this gap between the bulbar and the muscular part, and this leads to formation of the right ventricle and left ventricle and the interventricular septum. Then the common ventricular chamber getting divided into right ventricle, left ventricle, and interventricular septum, which has three parts: muscular part, bulbar part, and membranous part, which is formed by the proliferation of AV cushions. Now, just out of interest, I'm just telling you before I end this session that normally we say in the intraembryonic life, the blood is passing from the right atrium to the left atrium, and afterwards, when the child takes the breath, if the if if there is a gap here, now after the left side pressure increases after birth, and the blood flows from left atrium to right atrium or left ventricle. If there is a ASD is atrial septal defect, VSD is ventricular septal defect. So this is left ventricle, this is right ventricle, this is right. The blood starts flowing from right ventricle or left ventricle to right ventricle or right atrium to left atrium in case there is a gap. So one may think that oxygenated blood is going and mixing with deoxygenated. Okay, there is oxygenated blood here. It is mixing with deoxygenated. So not a big problem. Yes, initially not a big problem. Main problem is if this goes here, Deoxygenated mixes with oxygenated and is distributed all over the body. But this way, it doesn't cause any problems initially for some years of life, sometimes many years of life. Like we had a famous, the most beautiful heroine of Bollywood, who we know as Madhubala. Even if you go to Google and type the most beautiful heroine Bollywood ever had, the Google also gives answer as Madhubala. She had this atrial septal defect. So she died at the age of 35, between 35 to 40. So what happens here is this blood keeps on flowing from left to right, but then after few years, we are pushing excess blood into the pulmonary circulation and the patient develops pulmonary hypertension. Develops pulmonary hypertension. When the patient develops pulmonary hypertension, then the, the right side pressure increases. And when the right side pressure increases, now the tables change and now the blood starts flowing like this from right side to left side. And blood flowing from right side to left side and now deoxygenated blood going all over the body, that causes cyanosis. That causes cyanosis. So in ASD, VSD, initial years, there is no cyanosis because the blood is flowing from left to right. Then after few years, patient develops pulmonary hypertension, then blood starts flowing from right to left. This is called as Eisenmenger-ization. Eisenmenger-ization, which happens after many years, and then the patient starts showing symptoms. But there are some uh, conditions where patients develop cyanosis right at birth, and that is Fallot's tetralogy. Fallot's tetralogy. That means there are four conditions. It is Fallot, not Fallot's. Fallot's tetralogy. And Fallot's tetralogy, what happens is, suppose right ventricle, left ventricle. Okay, the right ventricle which has a pulmonary wall, there is pulmonary stenosis. Okay, so one thing, pulmonary stenosis. That means this stenosis, pulmonary stenosis, increases the pressure of the right side. This leads to right right ventricular hypertrophy. Right ventricular hypertrophy. Also, there is a VSD. So now there is stenosis of the pulmonary side, the pulmonary wall area. So increasing the pressure, we see whenever we are watering the plants, if we put our finger on the opening, the pressure increases in and the water goes out. So pressure increases because of pulmonary stenosis. This causes right ventricular hypertrophy. So increase in the pressure of the right side. There is VSD also. So increase in the pressure. So now blood goes from here to here. And then the fourth thing that happens is overriding of aorta. And aorta also is halfway on the right ventricle and halfway on the left ventricle. Okay, so some deoxygenated blood is going from here to here also. Deoxygenated blood is going through the VSD also because right side pressure is more. Why right side pressure is more? Because there is right ventricular hypertrophy. Why there is right ventricular hypertrophy? Because there is pulmonary stenosis. So pulmonary stenosis, right ventricular hypertrophy, VSD, and overriding of aorta. These four conditions together cause Fallot's tetralogy. Fallot's tetralogy, there is cyanosis of the patient, and that is also many times called as blue baby syndrome. So with that, I stop here on the basics of the development of the heart, the atrial development of the interatrial septum, and development of the interventricular septum, and some anomalies like ASD, VSD, and Fallot's tetralogy. Thank you so much.